My house that flooded is just about done. This is the kitchen right here. Awesome new pantry cabinets over here. Super exciting. We are just weeks away from listing it. Let me wrap up this whole story for you and add some tips. Here we go. I'm Sam, and this is the Living in Tampa channel. We make these videos for you about what it's like to live and move to Tampa and everything in between, including flood insurance and neighborhoods and all this stuff. We make these videos so that we can help you buy and sell real estate. We are a team of realtors here in the area, and we'd love a chance to earn your business. Give us a call, text, or email anytime. You've probably followed along the story. My actual house that I lived in with my family for 3 years flooded during Hurricane Idalia, August 30th. We had over a foot of water in this house and had a huge flood insurance claim. Insurance ended up paying out over $100,000 to fix everything. We had to cut drywall out. We had to replace every cabinet and appliance and all the tile and everything. I'm super excited with how it all turned out. It's a really unique mid-century modern house now, and I'm excited to help find somebody that loves it. Couple things we have left to do. They're coming to finish polishing the terrazzo floors tomorrow. We've got a little bit of tile to finish on the front porch. We've got landscaping going in next week. We've got a front door going in next week. Then it's final touch-up paint and we're ready to list it. The reason I'm making this video to kind of wrap up the whole process is to share with you the main lessons I learned through this process and to give some tips about whether or not you should buy in a flood zone. So this is flood zone AE. You can see right here on the map, a lot of Tarpon Springs is in this flood zone. You know, based on the history of the flood insurance, there had never been a claim filed. That doesn't mean it's never flooded. When they cut out the drywall, it seemed like the drywall had never been cut out because what was behind here in this 60-year-old house was plasterboard and a 1/4 inch of plaster. So it seemed pretty original. We found all kinds of other quirks that were also original that we were able to update, including the breaker that runs to the stove that was underpowered, and including deleting a few pocket doors and making the home a little bit more modern. But what we didn't do in the midst of that was delete the charm. We actually removed a counter in the living room and realized that there was a planter underneath it where we can put plants in. We're gonna put plants in there. We added tons of storage, like this wall here, this was just a blank wall when we lived here. No storage here. We've added tons of storage. These all open this way, and then there's drawers down below. Tons of new storage. And then the laundry room back here has a huge pantry as well. Adding some updates like that, I think, have added a lot of value to this house, but it's been a pretty big headache. In the midst of this, as you probably heard in the previous videos, I've been fighting the insurance company and the mortgage company for the insurance money. So when the insurance check gets paid out, they send a few different checks. They send an amount to get you started on the renovations that goes to you and to the mortgage company. Then they send an amount for the claim. Then they send an amount for recoverable depreciation, all to you and the mortgage company. You sign this check, send it to your mortgage company, and then your mortgage company, when it's over a certain amount, wants to hold it in an escrow account. They call it a lost draft account, but it's pretty much they want to hold it until you can prove what you spent it on, and then they'll reimburse you. Or they'll pay a contractor directly, but when you go that route, everything ends up being way more expensive. So what I did was I contracted everything myself. I found individual contractors for each thing, plumber, electrician, everything. And I paid them out of my own pocket and then got reimbursed. It was a major hassle. My mortgage company was never happy with me about it, but it worked out okay. I just signed and sent the letter the other day saying everything is finished and I'm satisfied with it. They wanted me to send this specific letter saying that. I think just removing them of any obligation of insurance fraud or something, I don't know. The remainder of the money of the insurance claim actually comes to me and is sent as income. So I'll pay income tax on it. But a lot of these things that I've paid in cash, and then they wouldn't reimburse me for those things because my painter wanted to be paid with a check and she doesn't actually have a business. The reality is you don't have to have a license to roll paint on the wall. Now, you can have a painting business and you can do that, but maybe you commenters are gonna tell me I'm being fraudulent and breaking the rules. I don't know. But the reality is you can paint your own walls in your house and nobody cares. So all kinds of rules I'm learning about and rules that I'm breaking willingly. The main lesson I've learned in all of this is to push back on things. You know, if you're buying a house, yeah, push back on things in the contract. Ask questions. In the midst of the flood claim process, just pushing back on my insurance company or pushing back on my mortgage company has gotten me a lot of answers. Oftentimes, the people I'm asking these questions to don't even know the answer to the question. They have to go ask someone else. But just pushing them to ask has gotten me a lot more answers and helped me see how I can push the process a bit more. In the midst of this, I've also updated this house. I've improved this house. I've added storage that wasn't there before. And if a contractor was involved in all this, all that whole process would just go differently. Now, a couple headaches that happened without having a contractor. Right here behind the stove is a lot of plumbing that runs really close to the wall in this old house. One of the things was accidentally drilled into by a contractor, caused a leak. Okay, cut that open, get it fixed. Have a plumber out, fix that pipe. But in the midst of that, another pipe got cut, and so we had to fix that. No big deal. The water was turned off. Then we installed the hot water tank, which is right behind this wall. Once we turned that on, we realized there was a tiny nick in the hot water line too, and it flooded it again. So we had to get fans and dehumidifiers in here to get this wall dry, because the bottom of this wall was suddenly wet. Everything's super dry now. I've had plenty of nightmares that I'm hearing leaking water, and I'm ready to be past that. Let's get into a couple of my ideas about flood insurance. First of all, the process is not that big of a headache. It really isn't. If you pay your premium, the adjuster comes out and checks everything and your claim gets paid. I was even in the midst of selling this house and we didn't live here. I was nervous that they were gonna try to say we don't live here, so it's not a valid primary residence policy. It wasn't that big of a deal. Scary, but not that big of a deal. But then my biggest concern with this house is actually the ability to sell it. I'm curious actually what you guys think. I've asked you this before, would you live in a house that flooded? But I'm curious now that it's like a super cool house. Do you think differently about it? It has terrazzo floors. You would not have to do anything to the flooring if it flooded. If it flooded high, of course, you're gonna have to cut out some drywall. You're gonna replace the kitchen. You're gonna replace the vanities in the bathrooms. But there's a lot of things now you wouldn't have to replace. The claim would actually not be as big now. Does that contribute at all to your thoughts? We also went super mid-century modern with this, so we're looking for somebody that's really going to like the style. Of course, that puts us in a unique bucket, but I feel pretty confident about that. All that to say, living in a flood zone comes with some risk. You're not completely absent of risk by having insurance or by avoiding the flood zone. People often call and they say they want to avoid evacuation zones. Well, if it's a big enough storm, they're gonna evacuate this whole county. They're gonna evacuate a lot of the next county too, in Tampa. When I say evacuate, they're gonna say you need to evacuate. It's not much more than that. But these storms, pose a threat a couple times a year. Typically, it's just not that big of a deal. They are doing some other things down the road here to improve the storm situation. They're tearing out this whole intersection that gets flooded during high tides. Now, unless they raise the entire seawall, I don't know how much that will help. It might help a little bit. It might help the water come out faster instead of it just sitting here during a big storm like that. But honestly, what happened with Hurricane Idalia was a big storm, a king tide, and a full moon. How many times in the next decade are all those things going to align? I don't really know. Obviously, I don't know. Living in an area that's this close to the water has its perks. I can literally see the water right here. I'm in the kitchen. I can see a bayou right there, which is brackish water. It's nice. I'm seeing it between two buildings, but still I can see water. A lot of people move to Florida looking for that kind of vibe. I can walk to really cool places. It's in a really charming neighborhood where people sit out on their front porch and talk to you. Some of those things are really big factors to people. And if you want to live in this area of Tarpon Springs, which they call the Fruit Bowl, those might be big factors to you too. Now, I'm not just making this video to sell my house. I'm I'm actually making this video to tell the story. I've told this story throughout a few other videos, and I want to just close this chapter. The house is pretty much ready to sell. We got through it. It's not that big of a deal. But oftentimes, my clients are looking for homes that are not in flood zones, and we can help you find those. You don't have to live in a flood zone. Not all of Florida is a flood zone. We'd be happy to help you find a house that's not in a flood zone. Give us a call, text, or email anytime. We'd love to hop on a Zoom call and just process your thinking, your move, and see how we can best help. Thanks for coming by.